Today I will be presenting our paper titled We Are the Data: Challenges and Opportunities for Creating Demographically Diverse Anthropographics. The information visualization community has increasingly been rethinking current practices that may harm underrepresented populations. For example, in their Do No Harm guide, Schwabish and Fang propose using an awareness of racial equity when representing data about people. On the HCI side, there has been growing momentum to acknowledge the pervasive presence of racism within our current research practices and the socio-technical systems we design. In their call to action to the HCI community, Ogbenaya Ogbu and colleagues propose several research directions, including ones that consider visual representations of race-based data. In terms of representing data about people, Anthropographics is an emerging subfield within information visualization. Put simply, anthropographics are visualizations with human-shaped symbols and use simple, sometimes generic human shapes to show data about people. This use of default human shapes follows conventions in other related fields, such as the visual arts, where generic human shapes, such as the ones on screen, are abstractions that can be understood as representing humans more generally. However, previous work does not provide any guidance for how to create these anthropographics from data about people. Anthropographics are also popular in data journalism, where default human shapes are used to emphasize that the data being shown represents people. For example, in stories about victims of mass shootings, victims of the COVID-19 pandemic, and to highlight important social issues. However, these types of anthropographics are demographically homogeneous, in that they use generic human shapes that hide demographic differences between distinct groups, which may impact their lived experiences. This aligns with recent work on perception of emoji skin tone modifiers that has found that non-white users actually associate the default yellow emoji with a white identity. This suggests that default designs might not truly be neutral and might not represent everyone. Hence we ask, how can anthropographics communicate demographic diversity? We explore demographically diverse anthropographics that represent demographic diversity as physical characteristics. When considering alternatives to current homogeneous anthropographics, how can we make it easier to create diverse anthropographics and data stories that reveal more humanizing detail about the people behind the data and their demographics? Our paper contributes a set of design explorations for creating diverse anthropographics, a set of technical and social challenges involved in their creation, and a collection of forward-looking research opportunities. I will be briefly touching on each contribution. To start off, the various design explorations we undertook are a critical, reflective process of creating demographically diverse anthropographics of race demographic data. We chose to focus on visually representing race as it is one of the most frequently collected forms of demographic data in the US and Canada. It is also often associated with visible markers of diversity, such as skin tones and facial features. And representing race in visualization comes with several challenges, which we will expand on later. The data we used consists of 8 race demographic categories taken from the US Census. We then created demographically diverse anthropographics for a random sample of 100 individuals, with their race data simulated from these 8 census categories. Our design process was iterative. We developed 2 prototypes, shown here, for our design explorations, and we met weekly to discuss our designs and the challenges we faced. We started off with creating standard unit visualizations of our race data, such as these blue dot visualizations. We also experimented with categorical colors to suggest human racial diversity. We then experimented with more representative human skin tones. We specifically used the Fitzpatrick color palette shown here, that is used in emoji skin tone modifiers, and we used a foundation color palette from the Fenty Beauty makeup brand. We then varied visual style with geometric people representations using these same two skin tone color palettes. Throughout this process, we documented the many challenges we encountered. One big challenge was deciding on a principled mapping strategy, which led to an uncomfortable question about mapping skin tones to race categories. Here we experimented with two strategies that borrow from how people were placed within race categories in the US, based on their phenotypic appearance, where we assign specific colors from the Fenty Beauty brand to specific race categories. This choice will vary between designers. For example, how would you map skin tones to race categories? Would you choose strategy 1 or strategy 2? This is a challenge that we expand on in the paper. We also include recreations of homogeneous anthropographics from current data journalism articles to show the range and possibilities of using diverse anthropographics to humanize data about people. We include 2 recreations of data stories about underrepresented populations from the New York Times. And please check out our paper to learn more. We also encountered several challenges when creating diverse anthropographics, and I will be highlighting 2 main ones that came up during our design explorations here. One of the biggest challenges for creating demographically diverse anthropographics is that demographic categories are socially constructed. What we mean by that is that these categories are artificial categories created by humans that resulted from colonization and ongoing systems of oppression. For example, race categories in the US have changed considerably since the 1700s to present day, and despite these challenges, several of these categories don't align with how people may self-identify. This makes creating anthropographics of these categories challenging, especially when we may make arbitrary choices about how to represent these categories. The second big challenge focuses on the process of representing these demographic categories as visual characteristics. This process is hard and has the potential to reinforce stereotypes or result in caricatures or racist representations of people. This is especially important to consider when working with data about underrepresented populations, as we may not have the necessary contextual or cultural background to create equitable visualizations of these groups. And lastly, I want to highlight that there are several open research opportunities in this area to support the creation of diverse anthropographics. I will go over the first 2 of these, and please check out the paper to learn more. Anthropographics have the potential to be used in other areas beyond evoking prosocial feelings, as they have been used so far. We also do not currently know how individuals perceive these anthropographics, and whether they associate a specific identity to them. And so going forward, we may want to avoid unintended defaults in the anthropographics we create. Because anthropographics involve representing demographic data such as race, going forward, we should take active steps towards working with marginalized and underrepresented populations in the design process to make sure that we create equitable visualizations of demographic data. To close off, as a recap, our paper explores the design of diverse anthropographics that communicate demographic diversity using physical characteristics such as skin tones. Diverse anthropographics can reveal more humanizing detail about the people in the data and their demographics. And there are several research opportunities in this area. Please check out our paper, and thank you for listening.